The dimension of the Dark Aether has more history than what we all first thought. It is more than just a dimension that twists and corrupts those exposed to it. It is a living, breathing universe in itself, with galaxies, planets, and civilizations of its own. The earliest moments of the Dark Aether's history is a complete mystery. Whether some god or being brought life to this dimension or if it just happened through scientific miracles is another unknown. But one of the earliest known entities is a floating monolith referred to as the Construct. This gargantuan monolith may appear as nothing more than a rock to the uneducated, but in reality, the Construct is an immensely powerful being. Its power is so great, in fact, that no one truly knows the limits of what the Construct can do. It chooses to stay uninvolved in the conflicts and civilizations that are throughout the Dark Aether. But there are always some that are more daring than others. Some who are willing to approach the Construct and ask for a fraction of its power. If these individuals are given the Construct's attention, then they must prove their worth by completing a series of trials designed by the Construct. And if they're able to complete them, then they are granted the power and status of an Archon. What exactly is an Archon? Archons are simply individuals who have obtained small fractions of the Construct's powers, becoming true gods of the Dark Aether. Several have existed throughout the Dark Aether's history, with only one of their identities being known. However, we do know the actions of at least two of these Archons. The first Archon used their power to fend off a parasitic species that nearly brought the Dark Aether's denizens to extinction, while the fourth Archon destroyed the moon, for whatever reason. Its fragments can be seen floating in the vast wasteland of the Dark Aether. Some of these fragments were utilized in the creation of special weapons. Presumably sometime after the existence of Archons, there came the creation of the Sentinel artifacts. Although, due to this lore being so new and fresh and contradicting old lore, I'm only going to leave it at a mention, because I don't wish to misinform anyone. Meanwhile, outside the Dark Aether, the Keepers, beings who watch over the growing multiverse, come across a dimension not even known to them. This group of Keepers, the shadowman amongst them, discovered the Dark Aether. This raw, untouched power of this mysterious and unknown dimension required further research, and thus, these Keepers began experimenting with its limitations. These experiments led to the harsh properties of the Dark Aether to begin its corruption. Because even for otherworldly and godlike beings, the toxicity of the Dark Aether was too great even for them. This corruption caused a split within the Keepers, those who were pure and those who were corrupted. As a result, a civil war ensued, dubbed the War of Agartha. One of the more powerful beings, Dr. Monty, attempted to save his friend, the Shadowman, during this conflict, but the Shadowman was already lost to the Dark Aether's corruption, and this attempt at heroics led to Dr. Monty's own infection. The War of Agartha concluded with the corrupted Keepers becoming banished and sealed away in the Dark Aether. The dimension was deemed too dangerous and unstable for any further contact or research. Before they were banished away, the corrupted Keepers managed to steal the raw and dangerous Blue Sun, a sun that was made up entirely of an element that would later be called Element 115. While Dr. Monty hid his corruption, the Shadowman embraced it. Within the Dark Aether, the banished endured an incomprehensible amount of time away from the Aether. Millions and millions of years passed, and the corrupted began their slow evolution into something more monstrous. Beings that would come to be known as the apothecons. Their newfound purpose in life was to tear and feed off of realities, and one day return to Agartha only so that they can consume it too. Aware of humanity's existence, the apothecons launched fragments of Element 115 through small tears in the fabric of the Dark Aether. Their hopes was that humanity would use 115's powers irresponsibly, allowing for these small tears to become larger, and then allow for the freedom from their dark imprisonment. By 1292, their wish came to pass. The apothecons and the Shadowman escaped from the Dark Aether and unleashed their wrath upon the reality that they found themselves in. The brave Wolf King sent his armies out to fend off against the otherworldly invaders, but they could not face these demons alone. To their surprise, the Keepers, who are now the protectors of the multiverse, along with Dr. Monty, arrived on the battlefield to assist the Wolf King. Later in the battle, 4 warriors appeared, fabricating in the middle of an unknown battle, and from the far future. These 4 warriors being Tank Dempsey, Nikolai Belinsky, Takio Masaki, and Edward Richthofen. The 4 of them, referred to as Primus, further assisted the Wolf King, and with the staffs they wielded, banished the apothecons back inside of the Dark Aether and cleansed the plaguing sickness that had begun to spread. Before their banishment, the apothecons implanted an immensely powerful device inside of the Earth's moon. Their hopes behind it were similar to the initial spread of Element 115, that humanity would uncover it and become corrupted by its near limitless power. Despite their second banishment into the Dark Aether, the apothecons didn't give up their quest for Agartha just yet. The shadowman used his shapeshifting abilities to manipulate residents in the bustling morg city, to lure 4 misguided souls to enact murders that would allow for his control over them. Nero Blackstone, a failed magician, Jack Vincent, a crooked cop, Jessica Rose, a desperate actress, and Floyd Campbell, a cheating boxer. The plan to get them all together worked perfectly, with the 4 continually doing exactly what he desired of them. Morg City became a living nightmare, overrun with the undead who were once residents of this unique town. But the undead were not alone. The apothecons had escaped once more, although not to the degree they strive for. To gain the freedom they seek over this dimension, the shadowman requires an artifact that is currently locked away in the city, the summoning key. The 4 sinners did as the shadowman asked, sacrificing individuals important to them for the summoning key. When the 4 rituals were completed, they brought the key to the Undercroft, enacting one final ritual. It's here when the shadowman revealed his true colors to his suitable servants. With the summoning key in his possession, the shadowman tore open reality and granted freedom for the apothecon overlords. The sinners, feeling hopeless and betrayed, were given a second chance at salvation by the keepers they were previously tricked into fighting. With the keepers' help, the sinners retake the summoning key and banish the shapeshifter inside. Before the keepers could seal the apothecons away, however, Primus Richthofen comes through a rift and steals the key, apologizing for the inconvenience and that he is a universe to set right. Hopping through the rift, he leaves Dimension 63 to the apothecons, who devour the dimension, ending the lives of the 4 sinners and any other survivors who may have remained. The apothecons wouldn't be seen again until the final map of Black Ops 3, Revelations. After collecting their souls from fragmented realities, Primus arrived in Agartha. Taking this moment to get some much-deserved relaxation, Richthofen carelessly places the summoning key on a table in the basement. Late in the night, as everyone was asleep, Dr. Maxis is awoken by a voice calling out for him. Venturing down into the basement as he uncovers the source of the voice, he reaches his hand out toward the summoning key. The key magnetizes to Maxis' hand, and he suddenly finds himself within the artifact. Taking his place in Agartha was none other than the Shadowman. Biding his time for long enough, he uses the key to tear apart Agartha and unleash the apothecons. The final battle awaits. Primus, with the help of Sophia, take the fight to the Shadowman, obtaining the summoning key and using its power to destroy him. The apothecons are defeated, the multiverse is seemingly saved. Except Primus has fulfilled their purpose. With the blood vial swallowed, they've created a paradox, allowing Dr. Monty to have the perfect excuse to send Primus back to the very beginning of their adventure. The cycle continues. Meanwhile, back inside of the Dark Aether, a fearsome entity by the name of Cortifex is born into royalty, and like his father before him, and his father's father, and so on, Cortifex slaughters his own parents and takes the throne and power for himself. A tradition of sorts within his family's bloodline. Later in his life, Cortifex and Syraxis bear a child. However, Syraxis keeping their child was against Cortifex's wishes, and due to his family's, tradition, Cortifex would deal with their child personally. The fate of their child is left entirely a mystery, with some theories believing that their child's soul was stuffed inside of Mr. Peaks. But as I said, that's just a theory. A game theory! I'm so sorry, that was stupid. As further punishment for disobeying his orders, Cortifex removes Syraxis' memories and has her join the Sisters of Agony, a group of fierce and deadly tricksters that serve Cortifex. With her memories gone, she became an echo of her former self, referred to now as Syraxis the Shadow. Under his leadership was Nordicus the Conqueror, who commanded the Night Legions, a commander so renowned, so feared, that his enemies would drop their weapons just at the sight or mention of Nordicus and his Night Legion. With Nordicus under Cortifex's command, the Nether Wars began soon after, a war that would go on for centuries. During these nether wars, Kortifex unleashed his wrath and vengeance upon the Wilds, a location that was home to Verkana and her clan. As Kortifex slayed member after member of Verkana's clan, their life force transferred itself through Verkana, adding to her power and to her lifespan. She became immortal. She became Verkana the Last. Back outside of the Dark Aether in the frozen remnants of a Group 935 research site located in Siberia, 4 survivors, Marlton, Russman, Misty, and Samuel, carry out the ultimate task for Primus Nikolai, to construct an artifact known as the Agarthan device. With the help of the site's hermit, Victus completes their task and transports the Agarthan device to Nikolai, who uses its power to plunge the multiverse into the Dark Aether. The cycle was finally broken, and the only way to truly save the multiverse was to cause its destruction. Primus and Ultimus sacrificed their lives while an incomprehensible amount of universes wound up swallowed in the realm below creation, leaving Victus's fate shrouded in darkness. As for the residents of the Dark Aether, it was at this moment they came to learn that there were other realities in the first place. Objects, buildings, relics, and entire worlds fell from the sky, items from the far-off future and the long-distant past. Discovering these relics, such as the Mystery Box or Pack-a-Punch Machine, led to the discovery of the newly formed universe that Nikolai had created in his final breath, as the entities in the Dark Aether believed the new and mysterious objects came from this other world, unaware of their true origins. According to Syraxis herself, it was her who first discovered this other dimension. Curious of this world's history and its natives, Kortifex instructs Invictor and Belikar to study humanity in various ways, with Invictor focusing on humanity's knowledge in warfare, and Belikar to learn about human history as a whole. Unable to physically enter the other world, Syraxis comes up with a means to bond and communicate with humanity, with Belikar helping realize her idea. Artifacts designed to appeal to humans, based off of the research collected from Invictor and herself. The deities then proceeded to create their own artifacts, referred to as the Scepter of Kortifex, the Dragon of Syraxis, the Mask of Belikar, the Horn of Nordicus, and the Sword of Invictor. Later in the conflict, Verkana would also create an artifact called the Wand of the Wilds. Not only did these artifacts allow for these deities to contact humanity, but it also allowed the wielder of their artifacts to harness a small fraction of their power. However, the downside of this artifact is once it was forged and once they sent it out, they would be trapped inside of the artifact until a human host bonds with it. The 5 deities made contact with different sections of human history, which I'll list on screen for the known ones. Mentioned in the Tombs End cutscene, Kortifex the Deathless provided the raw Sentinel artifact to an Egyptian pharaoh, though currently nothing more is known on that. They'd be worshipped as gods. Some are even mistaken as the gods from these civilizations and their various mythologies, with Invictor being called Ares, the Greek god of war, by Achilles, who was his human host. Nordicus was named Ymir, the frost giant from Norse mythology, and Syraxis was called a kitsune, which is a trickster fox from Japanese mythology. The 5 deities learned a lot from humanity, their histories, their way of life, and their ways in war. In turn, they each used these humans for their own benefits, with Belikar teaching Dark Aether rune magic to the Mayans, Syraxis tormented the locals of an Okinawan swamp, and Kortifex bonded with the cruel Egyptian pharaoh. Beginning to get on her former husband's nerves, Kortifex manipulated the locals of the Okinawan swamp to rise against Syraxis and the lord that she had bonded with, creating an artifact known as the Bronze Mirror. The locals used it to sever the lord's connection with Syraxis, forcing her back inside of her artifact. It was after this moment of trauma for the trickster that Syraxis fled from the Sisters of Agony and joined the forming resistance that hoped to topple Kortifex off of his twisted, blood-stained throne. Part of this resistance featured Invictor and Belikar, the latter meeting with Verkana the Last to formulate a plan to truly bring an end to Kortifex's reign of terror. Nordicus watched as more losses unfolded before him. Realizing fighting for Kortifex would result in defeat, he too betrayed his former master, joining the resistance. And now, Kortifex was losing allies and growing more desperate. One of his most loyal warriors, who wielded a legendary shield named the Decimator, even managed to fail in battle. To punish the warrior and use him as a warning to any others who even think about failing him, Kortifex molds them to their shield. Their memories became a foggy mess, losing their name and tossed away in the wilds. And if you wish to know more about the Decimator, I also have a video on him. Together, Invictor, Syraxis, Be'lakor, and Nordicus trapped Kortifex in his artifact and banished it away in the human world. However, this came at the cost of themselves also becoming trapped in their artifacts. They all spent the next unknown amount of time sealed away. But their dimension's influence didn't go forgotten. By medieval times, a group that came to be known as the Societe occult managed to communicate with these dark ether entities, gaining knowledge and wisdom from this other world. Together, they crafted the Tome of Rituals, a special book that contains dark ether rune magic and knowledge. A member of the cult and the Freemasons, Lucien Poiret, constructed a series of catacombs beneath the Eiffel Tower. The shape of these catacombs was that of a dark ether rune, the area becoming a powerful nexus point. The cult proceeded to use the Hotel Royal, a building commissioned by Lucien himself, for their seances, no longer needing to constantly change locations to maintain secrecy. However, not much more is known about this cult, unfortunately. By the 1920s, an unknown crisis occurred, causing the group to scatter the pages of the Tome of Rituals and for its members to disband. The connection between the human world and the Dark Ether would go quiet for the next 20 years, until March 7th, 1944. A Nazi research group known as Project Endstation manages to accidentally tear open the fabric of space-time using a particle accelerator in Morasko, Poland. A dimensional rift opened in the center of the accelerator, and the nearby scientists dropped dead, before necrotizing and rising back to their feet. It was this dimensional reconnection that caused a series of artifacts to react and glow. Another Nazi group, Die Wahrheit, was in possession of these artifacts after scouring the globe for them. The leader of this group, Wolfram von List, grabbed the nearest artifact, the Scepter of Kortifex. Wielding the artifact, Wolfram bonded with the ruthless Kortifex the Deathless. The two strike an alliance to assist one another, Wolfram in helping the Axis win the war, and Kortifex in gaining his revenge over the Dark Ether. With Kortifex's power to raise the dead, Wolfram von List has his men collect all of the bodies from the Battle of Stalingrad and bring them to him. An army of the dead for them to control. At this time, Wolfram locked Professor Gabriel Kraft, a demonologist who was forced to assist Wolfram in obtaining these artifacts and Tome of Rituals, away in an office, along with the remaining artifacts. With despair in his heart, Kraft calls out for help to anyone who will listen. Biding his time as the response team arrives, Kraft bonds with the Mask of Be'lakor, and he speaks with Be'lakor, learning all he can about the Dark Ether, the entities and the artifacts, about Kortifex, and the Tome of Rituals. However, his body is too weak to handle bonding with an entity for a long period of time. He gives up his power just in time as a strike team arrives. In a basket that he lowers down houses the remaining 4 artifacts. The strike team then bond themselves with Invictor, Be'lakor, Syraxis, and Nordicus, awakening the gods who have been in slumber for a long, long time. With their help, the strike team and Kraft plan to overthrow Kortifex and Wolfram. Armed with deities from another dimension, the strike team begin attacking Kortifex's attempts to regain his lost strength. All the while, Be'lakor sends out distress signals into the Dark Ether in hopes that they can get more help in their cause to defeat Kortifex once and for all. Only one was brave enough to answer their calls, Verkanda the Last. Presumably with her help, the strike team traveled to an Egyptian dig site, the very same dig site where Kortifex's artifact was recovered. Distrusting of her new allies, Verkanda wishes to see Kraft's strike team earn her trust. Bringing the remains of the Decimator to their reality, the strike team helped the Shield redeem themselves of their past sins, and with the Decimator's help, destroy the protective seals preventing them from obtaining a page from the Tome of Rituals. The page houses vital information on how to forcefully remove a Dark Ether entity with their human host, mentioning an artifact known as the Bronze Mirror, located in an Okinawan swamp. And so that's where they head off to next. A place of familiarity for Syraxis, albeit they are foggy, trauma-induced memories. Call it an elaborate therapy session. The strike team obtain the Bronze Mirror's fragmented pieces and bring them to the seance site where Syraxis had her memories ripped away from her centuries ago. Attempting to rebuild the artifact, an echo of Syraxis appears before the strike team, a living manifestation of Syraxis' trauma, memories, denial, and anger. Unable to accept her missing memories, the Echo lashes out against the strike team. But they manage to hold their ground, recovering the new forged bronze mirror and Syraxis' lost memories, coming to terms with her previous relationship with Cortifex, and remembering his obsession with the monolith known as the Construct. What Cortifex seeks is to become an Archon and reign terror over the Dark Aether and all of those who have betrayed him and who oppose him. Aware of the true stakes now, the strike team, Craft, and the entities make their way back to the Egyptian dig site to siphon Cortifex off of Wolfram and put an end to his plans. Returning to the dig site, the strike team places the bronze mirror upon the plinth, extracting Cortifex off of his host and sealing him away in his artifact. Except, this is exactly what Cortifex wanted all along. Breaking free from his artifact and from Wolfram, Cortifex can now physically inhabit both the human world and the Dark Aether. Leaving the dig site to enter the Dark Aether, Cortifex confronts the Construct, being granted a fraction of its power on his way to becoming an Archon. Close behind Cortifex is the strike team, who enter the Dark Aether but are brought to near death from a simple shockwave produced by the Construct. Before Korbofex could eliminate the pests, the Constructs tell him to give them a proper fighting chance and for them to participate in the trial. Begrudgingly accepting the Construct's demands, the strike team is sent back to the dig site. The strike team then solve and accomplish each step of the trial and re-enter the Dark Aether to confront Cortifex, who has significantly grown in size since their last encounter, now fully ascended to the title of an Archon. Tossing special Ethereum crystals into nearby pods, the strike team use the given corrupted shards and throw them at the floating moon fragments, which then crash into the Construct and partially sever Cortifex's power source, allowing the strike team to weaken and ultimately topple the wannabe God King, bringing the Nether Wars to an end. The fates of the other gods are currently a mystery, but a running theory is the Forsaken devours them and gains their powers. Back at the Morasco Poland Project Endstation facility, now after its abandonment, a brave Russian soldier is sent into the research site to close the dimensional gateway that has persisted since its activation. Sergeant Kazimir Zykov deactivates the particle accelerator, but finds the rift to still be open, resorting to entering the rift, which causes it to close behind him. For the next 40 Earth years, Zykov fights for survival and through time ascends to godhood, becoming an immensely powerful and dangerous being known as the Forsaken. And if you do wish to know more about Zykov and the Forsaken in better detail, as I won't be going in as depth on him here, I do have a video for it in the description. Through the centuries, the Forsaken acquired many allies, most unwillingly. Amongst the hordes are the beings referred to as Disciples, who once served under the leadership of Zealot Sporagmos, the very same individual who created the Chrysalax wonder weapon, which carries the sole purpose of slaying the Forsaken. Like before, the two dimensions stayed separate throughout those 40 Earth years, until the year 1981, when the Russian Omega Group reactivated the particle accelerator in Morasco, Poland, with the sole intent of weaponizing their discoveries. After 4 Dark Aether centuries, the Forsaken finally has the chance to get revenge on his homeworld and bring order to a world full of chaos. Between 1981 to 1985, the Forsaken manipulates a host of individuals in the human world, such as Alexandra Valentina, Dr. William Peck, the Requiem department heads, and many other innocent lives, all so that he can one day escape from his dark imprisonment. Outside of the Dark Aether, Samantha Maxis has infiltrated Omega's Outpost 25 facility in Vietnam, where she winds up captured due to a leak of intelligence provided by Director Richthofen. With the provided info, Dr. Peck subdues Samantha and begins interrogating her. Unable to get anything useful from her, and from further instructions from Richthofen, Dr. Peck tosses her away in the Dark Aether. She spends 2 Earth days in the Dark Aether, but for her, it was months, possibly even years, according to herself and her genetic data. While trapped in the Dark Aether, she taps back into a side of herself she had long forgotten even existed. Unlocking her old powers, which she used to unleash an undead outbreak at Outpost 25, carelessly forgetting about the innocent that stay there, including her friend, Sergei Ravenov, who thankfully makes it out of this onslaught unscathed. Mostly. In this dimension, she came to learn of the Forsaken's existence and of the rising number of soldiers that serve him. Once she was freed, she told Requiem everything she knew, albeit standoffish and unhelpful in her means of doing so. With the dimensional stability weakening, the longer these worlds stay connected, more outbreaks begin to occur across the globe, and the phases reach in the Ural Mountains expands. Meanwhile, an individual heavily under the Forsaken's clutches, Alexandra Valentina, or in reality, Angelica Vogel, ventures to the Berlin Wall where she opens a dimensional gateway beneath the city in an abandoned Project End Station bunker, believing her father, Dr. Ulrich Vogel, to be the Forsaken, and hopes that allowing for its escape means she can be reunited with her father and restore glory to the fatherland. The Forsaken gives Angelica a new crystalline form and extreme power, continuing its charade with her. The recently captured Requiem strike team then arrived to Berlin under orders of Colonel Kravchenko, and contain the outbreak, preventing the Forsaken's escape and proceed to destroy Angelica. Another escape attempt foiled. Growing impatient and hungry, the Forsaken becomes more desperate in his attempts. More outbreaks, more radiation, and larger expansions of the phase. The entire world became at risk to the Forsaken's reign. Believing Zykov can help defeat the Forsaken, Omega Group set up a facility in the Zakrapatska Oblast to extract him from the Dark Aether. Requiem strike team, with the help of Sergei Ravenov, arrive at the research site to take Zykov for themselves. But as they arrive, it's revealed that Zykov was the Forsaken the whole time. After several arduous interrogations at the hands of the director, Samantha Maxis is granted access to help in this final battle, well aware of the role she'll have to play in order to contain this threat. Aware of the threat at hand, Dr. Peck even steps in to help the Requiem strike team in their efforts to defeat and contain the Forsaken before the world can succumb to his wrath. Together, Requiem, the strike team, Dr. Peck, and Samantha bring the vengeful god to its knees, absorbing him into the nearby containment chamber, specially designed by director Richthofen. But to do so, Samantha had to sacrifice herself by entering the Dark Aether via the Forsaken's torso. The rifts across the globe began to close, but she's yet to be seen again. With the Forsaken captured, he is transferred away to the West Virginian city of Liberty Falls. The Requiem heads, Weaver, Carver, Gray, and Strauss, are arrested and locked up on Terminus Island for the next 6 years, and Richthofen's Project Janus continues to poke and prod at the Dark Aether in desperate search for answers on whatever Richthofen is pursuing. Eventually, in 1991, outbreaks began to occur at Liberty Falls, Terminus Island, and a castle and tomb in Avalon. However, the Dark Aether itself was only present in Liberty Falls and the tomb. When exploring the overrun town of Liberty Falls, you'll come across the church at the highest peak of the map, with strange purple growths. Opening the rift, you'll find that the entire interior of the church has been consumed by the Dark Aether. This is an entirely new and unique form of spread that we've yet to see again. Over in the tomb, we see 4 gateways that lead directly into the Dark Aether, but unlike rifts, these openings are controlled and, for the most part, safe. By 1993, Ava is born, a child that is a culmination of DNA strands from Ravenov, Dr. Gray, Samantha Maxis, and presumably others. Dr. Gray carries Ava for 9 months before giving birth, where at the same time, in the Dark Aether itself, a shadowy duplicate of Ava is born, simply referred to as the Entity. The Entity would long to reunite with her sister by any means necessary. Let's jump 30 years in the future to the year 2021. But I should mention, due to having already made a comprehensive storyline recap on the events of Modern Warfare 3, this part of the video may be a condensed version of what occurred in the Dark Aether. Link in the description below if you want to see the recap. By 2021, Ethereum has become a rare resource, and Russian ultranationalist Viktor Zakhaev seeks to unleash chaos to the world in order to bring Russia back to its former glory. Obtaining intel from the now abandoned Requiem and Omega Group, Zakhaev hires the PMC known as Terminus Outcomes, run by Jack Fletcher. Together they locate a hotel in the country of Urzikstan, where the corpses of Weaver, Gray, Carver, and Strauss have rested since 1996. With them are the last 2 known vials of Ethereum. Caught and in danger, Zakhaev is forced to use one of his Ethereum vials, tossing it towards the military police. Hunkering down in the armored vehicle, Zakhaev and Fletcher watch as the Ethereum smog consumes the entire city, zombifying everyone in its wake. With Urzikstan now belonging to the dead, the CIA reactivate Operation Deadbolt. Throughout this operation, to ensure that nothing gets in and nothing gets out, operatives run missions inside of the Dark Aether itself, which appears to be a distorted version of Al-Mazrah, another city in Urzikstan. During these operations, Ava Jansen, Sergei Ravenov, and the Deadbolt operatives attempt to close the rifts across Urzikstan. However, nothing is capable of closing them. The entity on the other side is what's keeping them open, and to end this outbreak, they need to take the fight to Ava's shadow. And so, at an unknown point in 2021, Operation Deadbolt successfully destroy the entity, who in her final words warns Ava of a group known as the Shadowsmiths. Post-outbreak, Ava travels to Liberty Falls to do some research on the outbreak that occurred back in 1991. Her trip is cut short, however, when a shadowy figure grabs hold of Ava and drags her into the Dark Aether, leaving her current fate a mystery. As for Black Ops 6, we've only gone into the Dark Aether 2 times now, and our first time it was to help rescue Dr. Pericles Panos, a scientist employed under Project Janus, and the other time consisted of our playable cast using the amulet to obtain the Odin Sentinel artifact, which was resting inside a Nexus point. And that is currently the history of the Dark Aether. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was originally just gonna be a Gods of the Dark Aether video topic, as it was requested, but I felt I could go a little extra. Oh, and if you want to know some miscellaneous info from the Dark Aether, like explanations on items, artifacts, weapons, and such, then I got a second video for you. You can see it in the top right of the video or in the description below. It's purely optional, but it does have juicy lore in it if you want some more. I got you covered. But that's it from me. So, see you in the next one. Bye bye.